In this video, I share some further thoughts on what happened at General Synod. Hi, welcome to the channel. My name is Rev Dan. I'm a vicar in the Church of England. And today I'm going to get into a bit of what happened at General Synod last week. These are just some thoughts and things, observations of what happened, what went on, and my comment on those. Just to warn you, this is a one-take video. I will be jumping around from place to place. Again, quite busy in the parish, lots going on, especially after my annual leave. And so there's a lot, in a sense, in there. And I'll get into that. But I just want to, first of all, push a new thing that I am involved with. I'm just going to hold up this. This is for the future. This is a very exciting sticker. Maybe I'll get some sent out. If you want me, just email me at the address below, revdan@btrministries.org, and see if I can get some stickers sent out to you. So what am I going to push? I'm going to push a podcast. So something linked to that, and that's something for next year. But I'm involved in a podcast called Spanners and Coffee. It's motorbikes. On Monday, I went with my friend to the NEC Motorcycle Live show. We were hosted by Royal Enfield Motorcycles, which is absolutely great. We recorded a podcast. The link and details are below. Please subscribe to that. That is linked to the sticker that I just showed you. In the future, it's really exciting. You'll see or hear, should I say, a different side of what's going on. Really exciting ministry that's coming up, and you can follow that story. This podcast is going to be 6 episodes, and I'm sure through popular demand it will continue to be further more than 6 episodes. But please, link below, go and listen to that, and I very much hope you enjoy it. And then we'll be recording live from the Ace Cafe next month, and we've got some great guests coming up. So that's really great. That's my push for that other project that I'm involved in very much, and it's involved with helping young disaffected people through motorcycles. Two passions there coming together. So the future is exciting, and this is what really it's all about, isn't it? Getting the gospel out there, meeting people where they are at, giving them hope when society and just the structures that we have to work in don't, and bringing that hope of Jesus Christ. And that's very much the essence of my last video, my response to what happened at the General Synod. Going away to Kenya and going to this art conference in London, we can get involved in the nitty-gritty and how our response should be, and that's absolutely great, and that's what is needed. But for me, I feel that there's a call for a push of let's get back to preaching the gospel. That's how we respond to all this, as well as perhaps doing some of the other stuff as you feel called to do that as well. And that's what I want to focus on, both in my parish, in my ministry, and on this ministry online. So people have reached out to me and said, about a call for prayer and fasting. So I'm calling for prayer and fasting on 2 days. First, the 29th of November, and the second on the 13th of December. So no matter where you are, just that day, pray and fast. And why on those days? That's because those 2 days are when the House of Bishops are meeting. I believe that they are meeting on those 2 days. And then we can just pray and fast for the right thing to happen and to be said, and for those Orthodox bishops there to feel surrounded in prayer as they contend for the faith. So please do join me, no matter where you are, for a day of prayer and fasting on the 29th of November and on the 13th of December. With all this going through, the division in the church at the moment is how do we move forward? How we move forward is to look to God, is to stand on God's word. The Holy Spirit is with us. He's leading us. And as I said as well, God's going to do a new thing. And is he calling? This is the question that we have to ask ourselves. Is he calling us back to holiness? What is it that we need to repent of? What's the thing that we've got wrong? I definitely know that I've done that myself, and that's we have to reflect and seek God in prayer and to understand that. So there's a repentance in there as well as we move forward into holiness. God's calling us to holiness as a church, to stand distinct from the world and distinct on the gospel in the power of the Spirit. So that's my little preach over. Let's get into what's happened at General Synod. Some of the things that I've observed. I sat here, I was working, I got another screen next to me, it was on there. I think a lot of people were watching and seeing what was coming through. Now, I've spoken before on videos, and it's been well mentioned in General Synod about the power of the House of Bishops, which is quite concerning. And one thing that concerned me is that in the presidential address, first the Archbishop of Canterbury went, and then the Archbishop of York. The Archbishop of York brought up the amendment put forward by the Bishop of Oxford, and said that he was going to vote on that. Now, he can say what he wants to say, but there is that understanding of the power of those words that carry. There are people in the General Synod who, on both sides firmly, they know where they're going to vote. There's people in between, and we see that in some of the voting on the amendments where the numbers weren't exactly the same on every single issue. There are people that would sway depending on what they thought, but that carried a lot of power and a lot of weight. And also the Archbishop of Canterbury said that everything that the Archbishop of York said, he absolutely supported. So this amendment, which was to bring in, which got passed, which was to bring in the Standalone Services for Sayx Blessings, which was an experimental thing for the next 2 years. The Archbishop of Canterbury fully supported that. So interesting as well that when it got to the actual vote on the item, the Archbishop of Canterbury abstained, because he said he is the head of the Anglican Communion, he's holding that. But so on one hand, he said he absolutely supports the amendment for Sayx Blessings, a standalone service, to go ahead experimentally, but he was abstaining. So it doesn't make much sense saying one thing and doing another. But that's what he's done. He's in that position, and he's said that before. But again, remember, back in February, he voted for the original motion for Sayx Blessings to be explored in the Church of England. So we've had all the talks, all the debates, all the votes on the amendments, and we are where we are now. And where we are is that they've said to the House of Bishops to explore and look at this and look into standalone services. And now you could say, well, look, that isn't actually going to go through. They might pull back. This is where prayer and fasting could come in, but in all likelihood, it's going to go through. And how does that affect us? So there's a question that I had at the time, and at the time of the General Synod debates, there was a lot of questions about the pastoral guidance. Where's the pastoral guidance? And the Bishop of London said, it's an evolving thing, but for standalone services, for the pastoral guidance for that would be evolving over the next 2 years and would come in 2025, should they be voted through under the B2 canon, where that requires 2/3 a majority of each house in the General Synod. The pastoral guidance would be ready. But since the standalone services have, in an experimental way, have been passed, where's the pastoral guidance? That's all that work's got to be brought forward and put in place before anyone can use these experimental services, because there's a danger of being taken to court, breaking canon law, breaking any law. So that's a lot of work going to go on now. But what was promised for 2 years' time is now being pulled forward. So as I look at my notes, all the things that happened. So probably one of the big things to really comment on is that the experimental services are going to go forward perhaps from March next year, with what people are saying, and can be done. So there will be standalone Sayx Blessings happening in the Church of England from March next year. Could be the earliest date. But this is an experimental period. When it comes to 2025, when the House of Bishops said we're going to bring the whole suite of prayers of love and faith to General Synod on a vote under Canon B2, that can be then overturned. And I think a lady called Kate Wharton brought this up. That's incredibly pastorally really difficult, isn't it? So you're going to have couples that are blessed, and then more than likely it will not go through in 2025. So everything will have to stop. So you're going to do it for 2 years, and then everything will stop because it will get voted down at General Synod. So, pastorally from that, what does that mean? And what does that mean for those same-sex couples who did get a blessing? Do they still count? What does it mean? So there's a whole lot of questions. So there's a whole lot of thinking having to be done about this. Now this has got put forward, and the House of Bishops have got a very short time again to put this through. We know that the House of Bishops is divided, and it's great that more bishops stood up and voted, but against the amendments where they were supportive, and against the main motion itself. So we saw more bishops standing up and saying, no, this is not right. But what we do see is that the House of Bishops is dominated more by liberal bishops. With the House of Clergy and the House of Laity, it's a bit closer, a lot closer. The House of Bishops is very much dominated by liberals who voted this through. So I'm just going to get some stats up here. So on item 7, which was the main motion, 62% of bishops voted in favour of it, but 27 over a quarter voted against it. So remember that this is their motion that they brought forward. This is the item 7 motion that was then amended. 10% of bishops abstained. Therefore, 37% did not support item 7 or voted against it or abstained in one way. And this was the bishop's own motion. So a house divided against itself, really. 51% of clergy voted in favour, 47 voted against. 51% of laity voted in favour, 49% of laity voted against, and there was no abstentions in their vote. But the difference between the voting in February and the voting in November is that the House of Laity, in the sense of voting against it, so more conservative in that way, and well done to those laity, because they are standing up and they're working out in the world, so that can go against them potentially. So the House of Clergy is close, the House of Laity is very close. So this whole thing of, if you watch the synodical process of us who are an Orthodox view being a minority is shot out the water. Minority, you could say, in the House of Bishops, but not in the House of Clergy and the House of Laity. Now, there's a whole thing about it. It went through by one vote. Well, on that, I'm saying in the House of Clergy and Laity, it is voted. You're elected on, and that's the process we have. So if it's one vote, it's one vote. We got a process where we're voting people on, and that's just the way the dice fall. Whoever gets on, wherever they stand, they can put their votes in. So if it's one vote, it's one vote. If it's 10 or 20 votes difference, it's 10 or 20. It still passes or fails. But that's just where it is. What it does show is that it is very close. And so the Bishop of London at the end summed up saying, we are taking away that this is very close and there are big divisions. Again, I think that's been shown since February. I think that the voices that are out there, the meetings that clergy and laity have gone to the bishops and voicing their opposition, I think that's fully been well known, and maybe at Synod it was cemented at Synod what they finally realised, that it is so close and people are changing. But hopefully they've seen that. But I think that's been out there for a while anyway. So the House of Bishops have got a lot of work to do now, taking this further to understand what this is, to get the experimental services out there, but with the pastoral guidance in place. What was very interesting at Synod was the whole legal document. Now, they say there isn't a legal document the House of Bishops saw, but the legal advice. And there were motions for that to be shown to the House of Laity and the House of Clergy. So what happened? The House of Bishops have got this legal advice and theological advice, and they were arguing that the motion paper with all the outworkings that they've gone through has got all that in the paper. The House of Clergy and Laity were saying, look, we can't truly vote on this in any good conscience in that sense without seeing that. We need to see what you have seen. How can one house, which is not above any of the other houses, they're all equal, see this and we haven't? And there were amendments put through to see it, and those got voted down. They got voted down, and that was really concerning, because there's a process. There is a process. So even if it's not in a document could be pulled together and to be shown and to be open. And that was one of the big concerning things for me about that, is because you've got legal advice which has not been seen by the House of Clergy and Laity, which could be really, really robust legal advice. But they didn't know that, and they still don't know that. And so that was why was it not open? Or was it really all in the documentation and they couldn't show it? But it just didn't feel right. And so the House of Bishops voting against that were not surprised. But what I was surprised at was how many people voted not to see it. You're voted on there by people in your diocese to go and represent them on General Synod, and there's a due diligence that should be taken by that person to make sure that the processes, not just on the LLF, but all the processes in General Synod are robust. And so to openly vote against and say, we don't need to see the legal framework, we don't need to do this and that, is quite concerning. It sets a precedent for the future and how business could happen again. Something could happen again, and it's like, well, we've done this before, we don't need to do it now. And I think in this process, in General Synod, processes they're there for a reason, they're there for protection, and they need to be followed. But that's what happened, and I hope it doesn't come back to bite somewhere in the future, because it's not just about winning the battle. It's about the war, as it were. It's about the longer process. So you don't throw away synodical process just to get something through when it could affect something in the future. And that's where we should hold our representatives accountable for that, because again, it's not just about this process, it's about what General Synod is all about. So there's a lot of work to do. It shows that there is not a minority position in General Synod, but it will also show that going forward, this will not go through. So there's a whole pastoral thing out there. So looking at my notes, there was, in the General Synod as well, there was a push by Orthodox for differentiation in some way or the other. And what has come back is the Liberals are saying we want to be one church. We want to be one church. We don't want differentiation. It's you that doesn't want us to change, and you must stay in that fold. And again, I'm not sure they understand the strength of feeling on this. So there's a kind of the pushback now is that there is a legal structure that we an obedience that we also swear in oath when we take office and we get and when we're ordained to the bishops and the archbishop. And so there's that there. But if clergy or laity feel that they can't be in communion with their bishop because they're so different theologically, how does that work? And it is that differentiation, and but the liberal side is saying no, we don't want that. It's in a sense going to naturally happen anyway. I think Orthodox people will not all, because there's a spectrum on where people's red lines are, but there will be a kind of not official differentiation, but there will be. But then you've got the problem with money and parish share and inviting the bishop to confirmations and things like that are just gonna, each church and person's gonna have to work out where they stand on that. So but the differentiation is not going to happen, and that's come from the House of Bishops as well, that they're saying we're going to find a way. Was it pastoral reorganisation or something like that? So, but it doesn't feel enough for a lot of people for that, but there are divisions in the church, and once the standalone services actually happen, then I think then there's going to be more. I said before, more people are, the way that this has gone through General Synod, more people will move their position, their red lines, because it felt as well with the 12 bishops coming out, dissenting from the proposal, saying it was not following a synodical process, the legal and theological advice is not being followed, has pushed people to go, this is not right as well. And if bishops are doing that, then we need to take action one way or another. And it's not going to be done in a legal sense. We will wait and see what the future holds on that. But I think more is going to be done in a non-informal way. And I know a lot of people are writing to their bishops about it already. So, but the other thing is like I said, it does feel like the bishops are out of step with the rest of the church. So if it is 50-50, if you took the General Synod, clergy and laity, say it's around the 50-50 mark, one way or another. The bishops aren't, they're like 75-25. So that is not representative of where the church is at. And in that, there's a lot of power, as I said before, in the House of Bishops. That they can, virtually they got a veto for anything. They can veto anything that they want on that. And that's where we are. And that needs to be addressed, and I hope it's addressed going forward. And so I do hope that the House of Bishops have taken on board the strength of feeling, and that it's a difficult way to navigate. And of course, the majority of the House of Bishops want this to happen, but they also realise that there is a huge majority of Orthodox people that don't, and how are they going to now work with them to move forward when, and this is the thing, when, to be honest, the Orthodox just want differentiation, and they don't want to be with those bishops. They want Orthodox bishops that they can work under, and a lot of powerful words. I'm just going to say, there's a couple of links below to Anglican Futures, who's done amazing work on this and got a lot of documentation out there to speak into what happened at General Synod. There's one link for the motions and how they were carried and what they were all about, and they were updated in real time as well. So good work there. And also the what happened at General Synod with some of the statements, and some really strong, powerful statements going on in General Synod, which showed the strength of feeling. But one of the things is, and as they said, there weren't many people who are going to change their position. So there's a lot of time put into this at General Synod for this, with the likelihood of what happened. So even if it was by one vote. Again, just going back to a couple of concerns, the Bishop of Rochester said there was a three-leg stool of the prayers, the pastoral provision, and got off the top of my head something else. And only one of them was brought, and that was the prayers, but not the pastoral provision and whatever the third thing was. It wasn't brought as a suite of a whole package to be able to look at with all of the documentation going forward. And yes, again, the bishop said, it's like piecemeal because things have to move forward and that has to happen before that. I still have the view that this should have been brought as a whole package, because General Synod again has voted on something that they haven't seen. So there's a huge amount of trust in here. They voted for something to happen, but what that is, yet we do not know. Would we go to the general election without understanding what our local MP or their party that they represent were bringing in their manifesto? Would we just say, well, I'm going to bring this one thing, but the rest will be, it will come as we are in government. We wouldn't do that. We would want to see what is the whole package that you're bringing forward, so we can make a judgment call on that. And so this is what happened. It got voted through, and we don't have that pastoral guidance, that pastoral reassurance. The prayers, I think they're not in draft form anymore. What was given in the papers, what's going to go through. And so that's concerning. Again, going back to the governance of the General Synod is really, where's the accountability in all this? And this is probably part of the problem with rushing this through. Even though it got delayed, this November Synod from July, it just, the work hasn't been done. And so that affects and disenfranchises a lot of people. We know that this is going to go through, but we really don't know what it's going to look like. It's going to be brought back in February. So once it's brought back in February, there's a danger that a whole load of other amendments are added to it, a debate again on it taking a lot of time. And at the end of the day, this is not going in 2025 to be voted through. It's all going to fall down and collapse. And so there's that pastoral part going on. For those who have already had Sayx Blessings, which brings me up to another, this is big as well, right? So a lady stood up and said categorically that Sayx Blessings are happening already. Now, I know Sayx Blessings are happening in churches. I've been told, I said it on my channel, I know bishops, archdeacons watch this and not reached out to say, hey, where you heard this is quite concerning. So you got a lady who stood up in General Synod who said, this is happening. And I think she said bishops know it's happening. And so that's a big statement. Where's the action now? Are the bishops investigating this? They spoke to this person? They found out which churches, which clergy have done this, because it's breaking, I'm sure it's breaking Canon Law. And there's a whole worry about, without the pastoral guidance going through for the prayers being done as standalone services for an experimental period, if the pastoral guidance isn't right, then they're opening themselves up for clergy disciplinary measure or being taken to court. And yet there's ladies saying it's being done, and they're in General Synod, so it's all recorded as well. And I'm not saying that a bishop hasn't taken any action, but are they taking action against that, investigating it and pulling those clergy that are doing it up? Because we're going through this whole process, right? And it's painful for so many people, and it's splitting the church. It has split the church. And will we recover? No, I don't think so. I think trenches have been dug now, and because of the way this has gone through, it's made it so difficult for people. There are people leaving the Church of England over this, I think, on both sides as well. So, what is the future of the Church of England? I don't know. Again, I spoke about that in my last video. I think God is doing a new thing and shaking the church up, because we need to be a church called back to holiness. But this is already happening. if vicars are out there already doing this, what's the point of this? They're openly doing it. Bishops know they're doing it, and no action is taken. So is it because they just don't want to do it behind closed doors, or they're still going to do it? They're still going to do it. So, and that's a concern, how you can so openly go into General Synod, so openly say it's being done. And as far as I know, please comment below, stand to be corrected, that no action has been taken over these clergy that are openly doing it, openly enough that someone can confidently say in General Synod. So that is a huge concern, seeing as that there's a lot of people on the Orthodox side saying, that they're worried about things and push back for just even speaking out about this. There is pushback about speaking out about it, but so you can't speak out about it without having pushback, but you can actually go and do a same-sex blessing behind closed doors and be openly known, and that's absolutely fine. It doesn't add up in my view. So have I got through everything? Things that just came to my mind. So yes, those are things that were on my mind. It is a process to be seen, but what happens? Will this carry on and continue as it is? Yes, it's going to go through. They're not going to pull back, but we call for prayer and fasting for us to be called back to holiness, to fix our eyes on God, to start preaching the gospel that God has called us to do, to serve those who we need to serve and help, and not get caught too much up in the details of all this. It's a huge distraction in one way or another, and we need to get back on doing the main thing. So we will continue to see and monitor this. But, as my African bishop friend said, God is on the throne. He is on the throne, and that's what we have to remember, and that's the hope that we have. He is on the throne. Jesus is Lord, and that's the greatest news that we can give, and that's the greatest news that we can hold on to.